Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in to an all-new episode of The History Gal. Today we are talking all about race and gender in Tudor England, and there are two groups I want to talk about. The first is women. They were exercising agency in politics and religion during this time period. And the second is that there's a growing African community in port cities and at court. Surprisingly, Tudor England was open to both of these groups, and the monarchs actually encouraged their success. Stick around because today we're really chatting like historians. Throughout the Tudor dynasty, one motto to keep in mind in regards to women is that status always trumps gender. So queens and noblewomen become far more assertive during this time period. Whether they're displaying their importance through fashion and dresses, or maybe they're giving money to artists and authors, maybe they're even eloping with their spouse of choice, like the Princess Mary Tudor and even Mary Boleyn. One big issue that women began to influence during this period was religious reform. Some of the most powerful families in England were split between Catholicism and Reformed thinking. In fact, the women would get involved in art forms like theater and drama to perpetuate their ideas. The staunchly Catholic Queen Catherine of Aragon commissioned a play based on the biblical story of Esther, and much of that dialogue was very supportive of the Catholic Church, even in the early stages of the Reformation. Now, of course, there were some areas where women were still less valuable than men, and one of those areas was medicine. We see this in the story of Jane Seymour's death. See, Henry VIII had sent his male doctors into her confinement room in the hopes of keeping her safe. However, what really happened was the midwives were asked to do less of their traditional jobs, even though they were the more experienced doctors. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why Jane Seymour didn't survive. Authority was still a man's game, and any woman with exceptional leadership like Elizabeth I would be subject to rumors. One of the best rumors at court was that she was such a good leader, there was no way she was actually a woman. She must be a man in disguise. Some of her quotes include her lamenting about her status as a woman or giving herself traits similar to a man. One of her most famous quotes is, "I have the body of a weak, feeble woman, but the heart and stomach of a king." The second group I want to talk about today is the growing community of Africans living in England. Most of them came through Portugal or Spain as slaves, but once they reached England, they were freed from bondage. The royal families of England and Scotland actually employed Africans, both men and women alike. One of the most famous was named John Blanke, and he was a trumpeter who served for Henry VII and Henry VIII. He's actually painted in a picture from 1511 that depicts the celebration of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon's short-lived son. John Blanke actually petitioned Henry VIII for a raise and doubled his salary while he was at court. He was also so valued that Henry VIII sent John and his wife fine fabrics for their wedding clothes in 1512. Another young woman at court, presumed to be of African descent, was a woman named Catalina, and she served as a lady-in-waiting to Catherine of Aragon for both of her royal weddings, the first in 1501 to Prince Arthur, and the second in 1509 to Henry VIII. She could have been a pivotal eyewitness in the divorce matter between Henry and Catherine because she would have known for sure whether or not Arthur and Catherine had consummated their marriage. Unfortunately, by the time the trial rolled around, Catalina had already moved back to either Spain or possibly Granada. So you see, African men and women were able to work in England either at court or independently as musicians, salvage divers, translators. Some of them even worked in the growing textile industry. Some of the art and literature from the Tudor period, like Shakespeare's Othello, also make it clear that the African communities were visible and important to Tudor England's culture. While Tudor England clearly favored men as powerful leaders, authors, and doctors, it's clear that status was just as important to the success of women and people of color who were able to contribute to the culture of Tudor England. I am so excited to bring you a brand new book recommendation in this episode, and that book is called Black Tudors by Miranda Kaufman. This is a new book. It came out just last year, and Miranda Kaufman tells the story of men and women of color who lived in Tudor England. It is absolutely fascinating. I hope you'll check it out. For more information about this book, you can find the link in our info section below. Also, don't forget to comment or leave your questions either on this video or on our Facebook page, because you never know if your questions might end up in an episode. Thanks so much for watching today. Y'all have a great day.